ever seen really cheap turbos on Amazon or eBay and wondered, do those things work? Well, me and you, we're gonna find out together. This is my 1979 Ford Fairmont. If you haven't watched any of the previous builds, it was NA with nitrous, and it just wasn't quite enough for me. We've had this thing down to LS Fest, Roll Racing, and we've gapped some Hellcats, but it wasn't quite the sell it gap. So that's what we're going after. And how do we get there as cheap as possible? By buying cheap Chinese parts, of course. Chinese parts that may work or may explode. I'm not really sure yet. However, these are the same turbos that are on my brother's twin turbo C10. I'll put a video of that up right here. And so we've got a little bit of experience with these things. And I've got to say, so far, they've been extremely reliable. I'm fairly certain they're still the original ones on this truck for 4 years with that nasty two-step and rolling anti-lag. But, Nick, how cheap are these turbos? They were $102 a piece. $205 delivered to my door. That's how cheap. And it doesn't get much cheaper to add horsepower than that. As you can see, we have some of the turbo kit built, the hot sides built, half of the cold sides built, the turbos are mounted, we've got some braces for them, but we still need to do a few things. We've got charge pipes laying everywhere. We need to connect this side of the intercooler up to the throttle body. We need to decap the injectors, flow them, add a map sensor. We also need to attempt to connect the exhaust down to our full exhaust. Yes, we're going to have a full exhaust on this car, and we'll probably have some type of cutout before it gets to the 2.5 inch so that the turbos aren't restricted, because we want to optimize horsepower here. That's enough talking for now. Let's get started on this thing. Originally, I was going to finish running the cold side first. However, we need to figure out where our exhaust is going to route first, and then I can continue on the cold side. So let's go ahead and start working on the exhaust. Anyone else check for spiders in their earmuffs before they go putting them on? Or am I just a freak? All right, we got both of our down pipes welded up, and now we need to get them installed on the car so we can start doing our charge pipe. All right, so we've got our down pipes bolted on, and we are moving on to doing our cold side. So right now I'm trying to figure out the route that I want to run this. So we already have this huge hole in the inner fender, which would be perfect for running the charge pipe through. Not sure if we're going to use that or if we're going to take a more direct route. So my original thought was to come off of here, down through here, and then go around the exhaust and through that hole. That's a lot of unnecessary charge pipe. We may do it, not really sure yet, but what I'm going to do right now is actually try to pull this headlight bezel out and see if we can't sneak the charge pipe going up through there. This all could be total bullcrap, and I completely abort this mission if we aren't able to fit the charge pipes up there. But if we are, then that's what we're gonna do. So let's get this headlight bezel out and get our cold side built. All right, charge pipe is made. So we've got our charge pipe done. I went ahead and fitted our blinker and our headlight bezel back in. I've got it all connected up there, as you probably already saw, maybe not. And the next step that I'm moving on to is just kind of loosely fitting the front end to see if I need to make any changes with our charge pipes or intercooler or whatever. So I'm actually gonna try to mount the bumper right now. I've actually got a factory mount in, right up in there, bumper mount. However, oh, we almost lost it. Oh my God. However, on this side, we cannot use that because we've got charge pipes in the way. So I gotta build kind of a custom mount over on the passenger side. And once I get done doing that, I've also noticed that it's not going to be much of a sleeper if that charge pipe is hanging that far down below the bumper. So we may end up changing that and running it in front of the intercooler instead of running it under the intercooler. It probably still wouldn't hit the ground. I mean, our oil pan is lower, but it just doesn't look very good. So I'll probably change it. Okay, I've been cranking on this thing. Off camera, we've got that charge pipe changed. Definitely had to change that. It was horrible. We've got some wastegate dump tubes made. We've got the oil feed line ran for both sides of the turbo. I'll probably zip tie that up a little bit nicer. We've got our charge pipes officially permanently on, except for the top one. I do have to weld a nitrous bung in it because we are keeping one kit of nitrous on this thing just to push us over the edge. But for now, we're gonna call it quits up front and move our attention to the back of the car. So one of the things we need to do for this turbo build is increase our fuel supply. Right now we have a Hellcat 525 liter per hour pump that was supplying the car of all its fuel when it was NA with just nitrous. However, I knew we'd be doing a turbo setup and decided to install another fuel pump, just a cheap Amazon Evil Energy 320 liter per hour pump. And now it's time to tie into that because we need the added fuel supply. So what we have to do is tie into this pump with this fuel line, run it down to a Y to tie it into this fuel line. And then we need to finish plumbing our fuel pressure regulator and run a boost reference line to it. Once we get that done, we'll be that much closer to starting this thing up and hearing it for the first time. We're gonna go ahead and throw this fitting on here and then install this fuel line and connect it at the bottom. All we have to do now is take this line and hook it up there. All right, we've got our second fuel pump line ran down. We've got it all connected together. Our fuel pressure regulator is plumbed up, everything but the boost reference. So we're good as far as fuel lines go. Now I'm gonna head up top and finish wiring that second pump up. All right, new day, new me. Got the fuel pump wired up in the back, and I came up with this list. We've got to weld some bungs in our charge pipe. We've got to do an oil change. I've got oil right there. Normally I run Brad Penn, but I had to get what it was local, VR 12050. We got to run our boost reference line for the fuel pressure regulator, plug wires, boost gauge and stuff, which I may do at a later point. I'm not sure yet. We got to install the bumper and grill after we make sure everything is done down here. We've got to do maybe do some crankcase vents. It's already got some, just not sure if they're big enough. Heat wrap everything. So let's get this stuff knocked out, and when we're done getting this stuff knocked out, it'll probably be ready for a first start. And unfortunately, something that I just realized is that we have to take our headlight bezel out to be able to get the charge pipe out. But you know, that's a part of what comes with not completely cutting a car up and making it a straight race car, and you know, trying to jam everything into a car without cutting it up too much. So minor inconvenience, but we'll get through it. Gotta keep our blinker. All right, here it is. We've got our battery installed. I just turned the kill switch on. We're about to turn the ignition on, cycle the fuel pump a couple times. I don't even know what fuel pressure is yet, but we're gonna go ahead and try and give it a start after I cycle the fuel pump a couple times. So I'm gonna put you guys over on the tripod and try and crank this thing up. All right, battery's dead. Typical first start problems. Don't judge me. Round two. and running. I'm gonna try to adjust fuel pressure. It's a little bit low. All right, so that was a successful first start. However, a couple things I like to check when I do a fresh build is one, fuel pressure, obviously. You guys saw I set that. But then the other thing is, especially with the new turbo kit, is to ensure that the turbos are getting oil and that they are also draining. And so that's what I also showed you guys. However, when I loosened this fitting up and then I went to retighten it, something stripped. So I got to replace that. But the good news is it runs. We are getting some oil draining through our turbos. And at this point, we need to get the exhaust on this thing because it is ridiculously loud. So I'm going to see what I can do about that turbo oil drain fitting. And then we'll move on to trying to get the exhaust done on this thing, the full exhaust. I just fixed that fitting, thankfully. And I just talked to the guys across the street because they've got an exhaust bender and they said, bring that thing over here. So guess what? We're going to bring this thing over there. So real quick, I'm probably going to yank the exhaust out of it and then throw the front wheels on, tie up any loose ends. And then we're going to take this thing for its first drive right across the street and get the exhaust done on it. So let's hurry up, get this stuff knocked out and get it over there to get the exhaust done. All right, this thing looks pretty sick for an $800 piece of crap. So I went ahead and lowered it down, got the wheels on it and everything, and check it out. Yeah, it looks real rat roddy. Got the wheels on it. We got plenty of ground clearance for everything, so looks pretty sick. Let's get it across the street and get the exhaust done. All right, that's where we're going to cut this video. In the next video, we're going to put this thing on the dyno, take it for its first drives, get this thing tuned, and see how it runs with these $100 turbos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.